So we've got Peter Hickey, and he's from the St Vincent de Paul Society, and he's going to be talking about the massive changes that's coming as we transition away from a large collection of programs into a more unified NDIS. And this change is so fundamental. It's almost like the change in the superannuation schemes in the 80s. It is such an important thing to get your head around because it has a massive impact on the lifestyle choices that your charges will be able to choose.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. Appreciate the opportunity to share with you this morning, today, about the NDIS, Local Area Coordination, and hopefully my presentation will demystify, answer most of your questions. A little bit disappointing that I'm straight after the motivational speaker, so hopefully let's make it fun, let's make it interesting, and I've got a few things to get through, but feel free to ask questions, maybe towards the end, and see how much time we've got. I believe Luke is on straight after me, so let's get underway. Understanding the NDIS and local area coordination. I am actually a team leader for a local area coordination team in Campbelltown, the southwest Sydney district, and I've been doing that role for 6 months, and prior to that I was an LAC myself, a local area coordinator, so all in all about 12 months since the rollout began in the southwest Sydney district in July 2016. Prior to that, I've been in disability services. I've worked in employment services, assisting young people, people with disabilities across a range of disabilities into open employment. And I've also worked as an ability linker, linking people into their communities. So I do have experience in disability. Some people ask me that many times. Do you have experience with disability? Yes, I do. So before I go into details about how the NDIS can help you, it is important that we remind ourselves of why we need it. The NDIS respects that people with disability have individual needs and goals, as well as the right to choice and control. The NDIS replaces an old system, an old state-based system, a disability system, with a national scheme. And it is across Australia that provides certainty and consistency, and in a sense puts everyone on a level playing field. People with a disability have a right to the same as every other Australian to determine their best interests and to have choice and control over their lives. The NDIS provides people with individualised support and the flexibility to manage their supports to help them achieve their goals and to simply live an ordinary life. So Australians will now have, in a sense, as the scheme is rolled out, it is going through a number of, I guess, growing pains. It is a challenge to transition people, something like 460,000 Australians, into the scheme, from old state-based schemes to this new national-based scheme, as well as capturing additional people who haven't accessed supports, funded supports before in their lives. So, the pathway, the NDIS pathway, it is a journey. Some of you may know a lot about the NDIS already, and some of you may know very little at all. And for some of you, it's still a mystery and still a bit of a struggle to get there. So, but I just want to be on all of us to be on the same page as we start from the beginning, I guess. So there are essentially 5 stages to the participant pathway, and we'll go through all of them. But the first step is exactly what is the NDIS. I'm going to start with informal supports at the beginning and work my way around this circle. The NDIS is about maintaining your informal support arrangements. Informal supports are those that are already available. They're already in place to the individual. It's being about part of a family. The natural connections with friends and community services that are in place now for many people. However, paid supports may be required to help the individual build that informal network. Consideration of the participant's family context, their living arrangements and informal supports draws on discussions, conversations with the participants, their family and their carers, and will take into account the carer's circumstances, their capacity and future plans relevant to their caring roles. And I guess the overall sustainability of those caring arrangements. Let's move on to what is, you may have heard this term, reasonable and necessary supports within the NDIS. We know that this is an area where people have a lot of confusion. So essentially, funded supports may include help with household tasks and personal activities. For example, showering, personal care, eating, home modifications, vehicle modifications, mobility equipment, assistive technology, support including transport, access and being involved in the community, social and employment activities related to that disability, to the disability. The NDIS will not fund supports that are not related to a person's disability. The NDIS will not fund supports that are funded by a different mechanism or system, such as Medicare or health or even the education system. The NDIS will not fund day-to-day living costs that everyone pays for. Everyone pays for, such as food, electricity, water, things, and the NDIS won't pay for things that may cause harm. But however, what does the NDIS fund? The NDIS funds what is reasonable and necessary to support, to help a participant to reach their goals, objectives, their aspirations, to enable participants' social and economic participation. By the way, I do refer to people in the NDIS as participants. Much better than clients or customers, and terms you may have heard of in the past. Most participants will access a blend of informal, mainstream, and funded supports. Supports that are NDIS funded must be reasonable and necessary. The NDIS funded must be reasonable and must focus on the participants' goals, their aspirations, their dreams. The NDIS, what is reasonable and necessary? That must focus, will foster greater independence, their social and economic participation. It also must be evidence-based, and it must also represent good value for money. The type of support depends on what different people want to achieve and what areas of their life they need help with. Funded supports may include help with household tasks and personal activities, mobility equipment, assistive technology, and there is a lot of assistive technology that's now available to people to achieve their goals. Support may include transport to access and be involved in communities, employment activities related to the person's disability. The NDIS funds reasonable and necessary supports that help a participant to reach their goals. This is actually a repeat of what I just said, so I won't read that again. Sorry about that. let's continue around the circle. About the NDIS, mainstream services and supports are the services that are available to all Australians that receive from people like GPs, teachers, through the health and education systems. We refer to them as mainstream services that we all access from time to time. The health system is responsible for assisting participants with clinical and medical treatment, diagnosis, clinical treatment of health conditions, including ongoing and chronic conditions. The health system also deals with supports directly related to maintaining or improving health status, rehabilitation, medications, pharmaceuticals. I think you get the picture. The NDIS will not fund these costs. The NDIS will fund supports and enable participants to attend appointments and ongoing allied health and other therapies to enable the participant to maintain their level of functioning. What about the education system? The education system is responsible for assisting students with their educational needs, employs teachers, learning assistants, facilitating access to educational resources, learning specific aids, equipment, computers, textbooks, things like that. The education system makes reasonable adjustments for students with a disability, reasonable adjustments to school buildings. They install ramps, they make schools accessible for everyone, and they also supervise our kids and students, across the high school system, primary school system, as well as into higher levels of education. The NDIS, though, will fund supports that enable participants to attend school education, where the supports assist the participant to engage in a range of community activities. And this may include assistance with self-care at school or specialist transport and aids related to the student's disability. Individuals and families also have a role in funding education-related supports such as purchasing school uniforms and paying course fees. The NDIS will not fund these costs. So we've talked about health, we've talked about education. What about employment? The NDIS will fund supports to assist with employment where these are beyond the requirements of existing employment services and employers. This includes assisting participants who are not eligible to go to disability employment services such as DESs or Job Services Australia. These services essentially exist to assist people to build their skills and their capacity and also to job seek, to find and maintain employment, usually open employment. I've worked in assisting people with to find open employment, and it's one of my passions is to assist people to use their skills and abilities in the open employment field. Employers also have a responsibility. They have a responsibility to provide reasonable adjustments in the workplace for people with disability to access their workplace. They can also have access to employment-specific aids and equipment, computers, modified desks, transport for work activities, meetings. Employment services are responsible for assisting participants to build their skills, to participate in work, and to assist them to maintain employment, including ongoing. Okay, so I think we get the picture that the NDIS is about addressing the gaps in the systems, addressing the gaps where the education system, where the employment services, where the health system doesn't meets, the NDIS comes in and fills those gaps. That's the aim. Bit of a gap filler. Okay. Let's talk about accessing community services and supports. I work as a local area coordinator, and some people are a little bit not sure what a LAC is as to a planner. I'll go into a bit of detail there, but essentially LACs help participants in the scheme, the NDIS, to build their capacity to assist them. We're not caseworkers, though. We're not there to assist people on a day-to-day basis with their personal care needs and things like that. We're essentially to assist people we have those conversations with people. We provide information, linkages, services that are out there in the community, as well as provide information about the funded supports in the NDIS, in the participants' NDIS plan. We provide information. It could be like assisting a participant. I had one father who wanted his son to play soccer, and we did some research and we found a local soccer club and gave him information. Had a conversation with the soccer club. Would they be able to accommodate the needs of the child, to allow him to play 10 minutes, 15 minutes in a game, that sort of thing? Having those conversations with people, building the capacity in the community. That's what an LAC can potentially do. We're pretty full on working with people's, building up their plans and having those conversations as well as implementing people's plans. And so there, the role is all encompassing. There's also, I mentioned before, one of my previous roles prior to becoming an LAC I was an ability linker. So that program is still in place in this state, in New South Wales. Ability linkers essentially link people into those informal, those community and mainstream activities in the community. So there are supports that are out there. Okay. Let's talk about whether or not someone is eligible to access the NDIS, so essentially accessing the scheme. So the disability must be permanent. You must be under 65 on the day you enter the scheme, and you must be a citizen, a permanent resident. So you must not be a dual citizen of any other country, unlike our politicians. But so yes. Am I on time? Who's my timekeeper today? No, he's not. I thought he was going to keep us all responsible. we're all good? Okay. So essentially to access the scheme, the website is a good start. There's also the 1800 number, 1800 800 110. Essentially, you need to complete a access request form and to send that access request form directly to the NDIA. And if you are eligible to receive support from the NDIS, you will meet with a support planner or an LAC, such as our team. So essentially, one thing is LACs, local area coordinators, we don't deal directly with access. That's taken care of by the NDIA. And so a lot of people do actually ask, what do I do? Where do I go to? There are the forms you can fill online. You can also print those forms out. We could probably assist you with getting hold of those forms. And the access team determines your eligibility. Let's continue on. Let's go back to the pathway I was talking about, the NDIS pathway, and we're at the point of first plan. We refer to people who get into the scheme and then they undertake a first plan. And this is where we become involved, the LACs or a planner. But in most cases, most people with less complex needs, an LAC will assist them with their planning conversations. So, the role of a local area coordination. LAC, some people call us LACs. I know some other derogatory terms, but we won't go there. The role of the LAC is to assist you to transition into the NDIS, to get started, look at existing supports, and as I talked about before, linking people into the community. It could be the arts community, it could be sporting, you name it. The whole gamut of life that's out there. Where's the NDIS up and running at the moment? Well, the good news is as of July 1 this year, 2017, it is fully operational in New South Wales. And LAC, Local Area Coordination, is essentially split between two organisations. The organisation I work for, St Vincent de Paul, and Uniting. And you can see that every district is essentially now covered. There are also provision for our office locations reflect diversity. So we have Aboriginal and culturally, linguistically diverse capability as well across the districts. So as of one in Sydney, Pacific, Sydney is now covered by the NDIS. Okay. Essentially, an information, a planning meeting, an LAC, we receive from the NDIA participants who are ready to go forward to their first planning meeting or a planning meeting. And so we receive that information and we will contact the participant or their family and set up a meeting. And we prefer to do a face-to-face meeting, unlike what you may have heard about the phone calls and things, planning meetings done over the phone. We can do first plan meetings in face-to-face, and we have offices where people can come to meet us, or we can meet people out in the community, in their homes. It's up to them. We'll do a short risk assessment and essentially meet with you and any other important people that the person would like to be part of that meeting. There's support services. More than happy to be part of that meeting. But the idea is to gather all that information about the participant and encapsulate that in essentially a 2-hour first planning meeting. And essentially, so the idea is to be prepared, gather your evidence, provide the LAC or the planner with that information. And we upload information into the participants' portal. The participants, we have an online program. We don't deal with paperwork. We're very respectful of confidentiality and privacy, so we try to capture everything electronically. And so we will help people understand their plan, start accessing supports in their NDIS plan. But essentially, some people ask, well, what happens in a planning meeting? There are a number of questionnaires, and some people think that, they're not relevant to me, but some of them are very simple, yes and no responses, but others, the idea is to draw out essential information that will generate a plan relevant to them. Okay. Yes. So once a plan is completed, we submit them to the NDIA for approval. They essentially attach the funding to the plan. To the information that we've gathered in that meeting, they attach the funding to it. And then we receive advice. Some plans are approved in 24 hours, others can take a few weeks. Some people ask us, how long does a plan take to be approved? That's a mystery question for us too, but we wait and then we receive an interaction from the NDIA. Hey, this person's plan is ready to go. Contact, and we set up what we call an implementation meeting, and we meet again with a participant. Once again, it could be in our office, it could be in the community, and we help to explain the plan, to break it down. Sometimes participants will receive the letter first, and they go, what does this mean? So we help participants to understand it, try and demystify it, make it a bit more plain English. So we'll work through the plan and discuss areas where the participant would like to be supported, and to then make those essential decisions about choice and control in their life. What can they spend those funds on? What services can they use? For some people, they've used services in the past and they just simply want to create a new service booking under the NDIS with those services. We can assist participants to do that. As LACs, local area coordinators, we are impartial, we are objective, we don't recommend or refer participants to services. you might think, well, what's the point there? But we stay impartial, so we don't have any preference for services, but we will advise participants this is what's available in your area, and we essentially help people to activate their portal. So you've heard of the online portal. Some people love it, some people, it's a bit of a challenge, the online process, but that, once again, it's all about choice and control. Allows people to manage their funding, their plan in front of them in the privacy of their own home, and they can see where their funds are being expended. So as I know, I say we'll get people started in that process and explain how to make a service booking. Service bookings usually the providers can make those bookings themselves, but some participants can make those bookings themselves using the online portal. And a participant can contact an LAC at any time to discuss plan implementation or any issues they might be having, any follow-up issues. Just yesterday, I was working with a participant. They've been with a provider for a number of different services, but there was a chunk of money that they needed to be withdrawn out of their core funds to be so they can purchase incontinence products. They weren't able to because the service booking was all tied up in. Oh, these are the sort of things we do on a daily basis. Sometimes the little things and sometimes the big things. And sometimes I feel I need to have an accountant's degree to understand how we can manage these funds. But we are learning so much as we go along, and we're gaining more experience as the scheme progresses and transitions. Okay. I talked about the portal. The portal you can access via, most people have a MyGov account, and you essentially link your NDIS account into your MyGov, and then that gives you access to a whole range of information about your plan, and that's quite an effective tool. Okay. All right. So managing funding, to exercise choice and control over your support. There is just a few terms. You can self-manage your plan, and that's essentially the NDIS is you pass, I guess, eligibility that you can manage those funds, and so that's complete self-management, no LAC involved or support coordinators. You're happy to manage that fund yourself. That's one option. Most people at the moment are choosing to have the agency manage the funds, and essentially it's still their funds, their plan money, but an LAC assists them to expend those funds by accessing supports. Agency managed. NDI will pay providers directly for you, and if you choose this option, you have to use providers who are registered with the NDIA. Where on the alternative, if you self-manage, you can choose to purchase with non-NDIS registered providers. Yes, that's a good question. You can actually, and that's only just come about in, you can 40-60, 50-50, that option is available, depending on the supports. Particularly, some people like to use their capacity building funds for that purpose, to self-manage. And the other option was plan management agency, and that's where there are providers who can manage the funds on your behalf. They're essentially a third party who will pay your invoices and manage the funds. Okay, so most of your NDIS supports will be delivered by providers, and providers are people or businesses of your choice. And you need to enter into a service agreements with a provider. And LAC can assist you with that process as well as support coordinators. I'll talk about support coordinators now. In many cases, some people will be eligible for a support coordinator, and the justification for a support coordinator will be explored at that first planning meeting. And the key indicators to consider will be the cognitive impairment. The participant may be unable to communicate without assistance. no informal supports, cultural considerations, remote location, those sort of things would be considered to obtain a support coordinator. Okay, so we have a plan. We've had a planning meeting. We've had a plan approved. It's been implemented, accessing supports. We're now at the point of reviewing your plan. And in the district where I'm working right now, we're just starting to do first plan reviews. We've been in operation 14 months now. And so we're starting to have our very first plans come back to us. And so we're getting a little bit early, 2 or 3 months before the full expiry of the plan. So we've got time to get it, have those conversations again, have a look at what's worked, what didn't work, were goals achieved, were all the funds expended in all those the core capital capacity building funds, were they all expended? So we'll have a complete review of everything, have that conversation, and explore what's new, what would you like to achieve now, and take it from there. Okay. The LAC will assist the participant to continually review what has worked and what hasn't. Yeah, I said that. We'll consider current informal, mainstream funded and community supports and think about new goals that you may want to achieve. Okay. Well, I think that's okay. There's some key contact details, NDIS website and 1800 number, as well as local area coordination, St Vincent de Paul. I don't have the contact details for Uniting, for the other districts, which is essentially north of Sydney and west of Sydney. I cover the southwest Sydney, the Sydney district, and southeast Sydney. Any questions in the time we've got? Sure.
I'm a family of 3. We've got blindness, and we've had our LAC over. We've had our plans running. The plan review was absolutely disappointing because my eldest son's goals that were in the plan weren't met. We can't function without any light. We can't see without light, and our house is very dark.
Yeah.
We need lights.
Yeah.
Lights are going off. The planner person has cut the funds completely and have put it towards counselling, which was great, but that was not exactly the review we were after.
Yeah.
So what would we do in that point of we're lost? Because I'm the one that has had to manage the fund because the coordinator was taking us for a ride. So
Support coordinator?
Yep.
Yep.
So
Mm-hmm.
a bit disappointing in that. So
Yep.
I don't know where to go. The LAC hasn't really gotten back in touch with me in regards to this because it was the planner's decision. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So you may have already done this, but have you had a clinical, or you've done an assessment and say this is what's required, and
I mean, I don't know how much there is indeed to say that you've got blindness. I don't know.
yeah. So they've recommended that this lighting, this.
Yeah, well, we had what do you call it, one of those people that come out the O&Ms and all of those to assess lighting and everything.
Yeah.
And he was going to give us a quote. She didn't even look at the quote. No.
Okay. Okay.
And we've had accidents with my son who is completely blind at night.
Okay. So you don't feel they've listened to you with the review?
So
Okay.
I don't know whether or not to do a self-advocacy thing
Yep.
where I can actually get a review.
Yep. So there is it could be like a complaint process. You could go down the pathway of saying, well, I'm being heard here, and contact the NDIS has a complaints process, because it feels like you've exhausted all the channels that I would suggest. You've put in a review and it's been knocked back, but I guess was it knocked back because it wasn't reasonable or necessary?
Everything that the OT had recommended.
Yep.
Was, well, why? Why does he need to have lights? Why does he need to have this or that? Well, you
Yeah.
can't see. So I don't think that they understand. I don't know if the planners really do have an understanding of the disability.
Yeah.
side of things.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that's something that the NDIS can actually, NDIA needs to review as well. But
Mhm.
it's a very frightening thing since it's broken his arm.
Yeah. I would encourage you to keep fighting. And as you say, advocacy, you shouldn't have to go this hard, but sometimes, I know in certain cases, I'm part of the NDIS and I'm on the same card, but I sometimes have to push to get things.
It makes it hard because I don't drive, and
Yeah.
to do this course of courts, you have to, do the community events. I can't drive, so
Yeah.
this person's in Blacktown planning and we're in Parramatta planning, so it was very bizarre how it all ended up in the first place.
Yeah.
So I can't drive, I can't take my kids to the places,
Yep.
and then they've given me $1,000 for transport. Well, that's not very good.
No. No. Yeah.
I don't know where we went wrong with the planning because it was pretty good. So I don't know.
Yeah. So when do you think you'll be up for?
I'll probably be complaining because I'm a pretty good public complainer.
Yeah.
But it's whether or not they actually listen.
Yeah.
So it's for someone who's blind, who's got enough things on their plate, it makes it really worse.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
This is not a question really, it's more a statement. I think everyone knows that everyone's under the pump, NDIS, the plan, and everything. But I think there's a fundamental flaw in the process which needs to be addressed.
Yep.
Because I think that's what came up with your son.
Yep.
You go to a planning meeting, you have all the documentations, you've already identified the gaps. Most people who have children who are disabled or adults who are disabled have been working on these for years.
Yep.
So we are highly prepared. We come, we speak, it's all written down, or maybe not even written down.
Yep.
Sometimes it's on an online survey which you can't see what they're writing.
Mhm.
Now, NDIS is supposed to be about control and choice. Well, how can you choose and control when you can't see what someone's writing on an online survey?
Mhm. Yeah.
So then they press submit. I couldn't see it. I didn't know what had written down. And my daughter couldn't see it. I didn't know, hang on, I didn't know what it was written down.
Mhm.
So the plan goes off. You actually don't see the plan. You see some people writing notes. When the plan goes off, then someone else allocates the budget to it. It's not the coordinators. It's someone else, isn't it, that allocates the budget to it.
At the moment, that will change under the review process.
Okay, but at the moment, At the moment, it's someone else, not the coordinators, who allocate the budget. And so the budget gets allocated, and then suddenly the plan is approved. Well, how can it be approved when the people who have sat down with you have not seen the plan and have not seen the budget? So the problem exists right from the start. It's the process that's the problem. And I think if we're going to change the NDIS, that needs to be changed. So I don't know what's under review, and I feel very, very sorry for all of us, including the people who work for NDIA. But the process is flawed. And if we don't start with the people, the coordinators, with the people who've got children with disabilities and people who have disabilities, managing the budget and allocating the budget, rather than someone else coming in and having a look at a second-hand plan allocating budget resources, who I bet your life do not have disability experience or live with disability, then it's going to be a problem for everyone. For you, for people with children with disabilities, with parents, everyone. And I'm sorry, I'm a bit of a soap opera here, but I think that is your problem as well. So if I was to look at the review process, and I have 3 children with disabilities, then that is what I would change. And that's a process change that can easily be done.
Thank you.
So sorry, that wasn't really a question.
Can I just say that, the team I work with, we're very resilient and we understand that it's not perfect. And this scheme is it is a massive undertaking. So there's going to be flaws and issues, and we appreciate it. And I know I'm very passionate about achieving what the NDIS is setting out to do. So we are working to overcome those things. LACs get more experience in a range of disabilities is something we need to, by all means. We are going back to base with a number of things in our training, And so it's a continuous process because we can't really go back to where it was before. We've just got to keep pushing. I appreciate that it's difficult for people having to experience the delays and the issues. So, yeah.
I might just go to Cindy on.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I've got 3 questions for you. Could you tell me, a lot of our legally blind students start receiving the blind pension when they're 16 years old. Does the NDIS replace the blind pension?
No, it's got nothing to do with income at all. People, no pension, it's not income related at all.
So that continues as usual?
As far as I'm concerned, yeah. People on the DSP, disability support pension, continue.
Thank you. Okay, my second question, my team has been told by Vision Australia workers that our families cannot access laptops or iPads through NDIS funding.
Well, under a previous state scheme, people did get iPads and computers as part of their packages. They were able to purchase those items. What I mentioned reasonable and necessary. What is, if that's reasonable and necessary and it comes at a recommendation by a specialist, an allied health professional that argues that, it is a bit of an uphill to get some of those things approved, but it's got to be related back to that person's disability. Do they actually need a laptop, an iPad to actually, is that going to help them?
Yes. Yes.
With their communication?
Most
So
definitely.
if you can argue the case and got the evidence and back it up, then that's worth submitting and putting it in the planning conversation.
Okay, we'll give that a try. And my third question is, what role would vision support teachers have in supporting families through the NDIS? The area that my team works in, our families or the parents are poorly educated and they come from NESB backgrounds. So this whole process just really phases them out.
So yeah, I mean, is it almost like you're an advocate for the families
Yes.
and the participants? Yeah. So you could assist by, a lot of people just understanding, completing the access request forms is a challenge for people. We can do that with people as well, but if they're more comfortable with people that they trust and know, who've worked with them for quite a period of time, then that's preferable. You could be part of if the participant wants you to be in that first plan meeting, by all means, come along. You know, I've had planning meetings where I've had up to 10 people involved. It's like a cast of thousands, and I'm got to facilitate these meetings. It's fantastic. But, you know, if it's in the interest of the participants, their choice to have people like yourself engage in the meeting.
I might just pass to the final. Oh, okay, we'll do 2 more questions. I'll do Mike Maguire first.
Thanks. I'm interested in the difference between early intervention and post-early intervention. Especially, you said that LACs are just from Uniting and St Vincent de Paul. But I thought there was a role that seemed to be getting carved out for organisations like RODBC in that process now.
Yeah. So we don't do that area. You're talking about the under 7s.
Yep.
So that's a completely separate.
That's a completely different process.
Completely separate NDIS process.
Is there an acronym I should be searching under?
I've actually got brochures. If you come out to my table, I've actually got brochures, but I must admit,
That doesn't have 3 letters. ECEI.
Yeah.
Early childhood, early intervention.
so
Thank you. Yeah, ECEI. I will write that down, and I'll come
I've
to your table.
definitely got brochures, but thanks for that acronym explanation. There's so many acronyms in this business, it's not funny.
Acronym Richard Ryan. Final question, and we might adjourn for other questions later on.
Thank you. I have students on NDIS, and the problems I've found are if they review before the year is up, changing the review with NDIS is a real issue, and also bringing on a student in the middle of their plan is really very, very difficult to get through to NDIS or the planners. So I'm just asking for their advice of the best way to proceed.
So when you say middle of the plan, what do you mean by that?
Well, it hasn't done its year or it hasn't done its
Okay,
full
yeah.
run. Yeah.
So that's essentially where the LACs come into, local area coordinators. So I didn't explain it. There's planners and LACs. The NDIA is using more and more LAC to do the face-to-face, on-the-ground sort of work with participants. And the planners essentially are, I guess, the admin side of the role, where they're essentially attaching the funding based on the information that we have gathered out in the field with participants. So you probably won't deal, you may still deal directly with planners directly, and they'll call you if they have queries when they're completing the plan build. But generally they prefer the LAC is out there engaging with participants with inquiries and handling any issues, and we can assist participants to forward their requests through a bit of a triage their issues to the relevant department of the NDIA. So, yeah.
Can I just ask you how would you approach? I have a student in Tasmania who really would like our service, and their local planner or whoever it is that they're working through has set their plan so that she really can't change it until the end of a period of time. So if she would like our service, what does she do? Wait until the plan's due for renewal? Or how can she access our service?
You can request a review at any time in the 12 months. It doesn't have to wait till the full 12 months.
Okay, thank you.
I know we have heaps of questions. Because it's starting around really late, but is it okay if you hang around for lunch, or maybe you guys could take it offline? Is that cool? One more, because we've got to keep moving. Here we go. Because no one wants to be late for lunch, right?
It's just a very quick one. When a family has been in a certain area, got a LAC or a planner, I have a family who's been told twice that they're not eligible, and they clearly are.
Yep.
And the parent has fairly good English, but that is a bit of a barrier, but doesn't really know what to do. Can she go to a different area, or are they stuck with one particular planner? Or can they go somewhere else? Because these children are missing out. There's a lot of time is being wasted, and she doesn't really know where to go, or she'll go back to them. But she needs somebody to advocate for her as well. But it seems that the planner or the LAC isn't really.
They can request a change of LAC.
Okay.
We're not, as I said, we're not the caseworkers. It's all about the participant, person-centred. The focus is that I've swapped my LACs around participants all the time at the request of a participant or to suit the needs of the person, so that's not an issue. But you said before the person hasn't actually accessed the scheme, is that right, or they have? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I don't deal with the access side, and there's a bit of a mystery there for me sometimes where, but they have their eligibility requirements, and the disability must be permanent and have a profound impact on their daily life activities, yeah. And so it's evidence gathering and continually pushing forward, advocating. Some people have been successful upon appeal, I understand, but it's not an area I generally work in, the access side of the NDIS.
Look, I just want to say one thing. Peter's done an incredibly tough job. The Safeside Institute worked for some months to try and get someone from NDIS to come to our day and present. So, and I can see why. It's a tricky area, right? So it's
Do I get paid your money today, mate?
So look, the honest answer is it okay if you hang around for lunch?
I will.
Yeah, look, my advice is this is a big transition. How we end up landing of the NDIS, well, how it will be probably in 100 years' time, I think. So, we've got all these issues we need to work through. Some of you are probably a little bit confused by comments about is a laptop necessary. I feel the input on that, but these are the kind of issues we need to work through and some of you say work through again, that's recognised, but you need to advocate for your students and your children, because there's a lot of transition. I put to you that probably the Ministry of Transport, most people drive to work instead of get the bus or train, and there's a similar situation you've got there. That's why you have the Sydney trains. But look, I'm sure that everyone's going into this with the best of intentions. So please, if you can give some feedback and ask some questions, that would be awesome. So I just want to thank Peter for doing an incredibly tough job. Thank you so much today. Thank you.